Okay, well, thank you everyone for joining us today for this webinar, Teaching Online Summer Classes, Challenges for Students and Faculty. My name is Danny Shapiro, and I'm on the marketing team here at Hawks Learning. Our speaker today is Dr. Olcay Akman, a professor of mathematics at Illinois State University. Dr. Akman is the director of the Intercollegiate Biomathematics Alliance, a consortium of universities collaborating and sharing resources in the pursuit of scholarship, teaching, and advanced research development. He also serves as the editor-in-chief of the journals Letters in Biomathematics and Spora. Dr. Akman has been using Hawks Learning since 1999, and he is in fact responsible for some of the features that are part of Hawks today. We do have a very large webinar audience, and we're going to do our best to get to as many questions as possible. My Hawks colleagues, Jennifer O'Brien and Joanna Grabert, two of our course implementation specialists, are also joining us in the background of the webinar today. They are here to help answer questions throughout the presentation. So please enter those into the Q&A box as we go, and they will write back to you. I know that we have instructors from several different disciplines here today, and we'll work to address your unique course setup questions as much as we can. We'll save your questions for Dr. Akman for the end of the presentation. And on that note, I'll hand it over to you.
All right, thank you, Danny. This is a pleasure to share with my experience on Hawks Learning Systems. Our agenda is really not too detailed today. I'll talk about perhaps some general basic aspects of Hawks Learning Systems software for those of us who have not used it before. And then I'll share my experience and the things I did wrong and the things I learned from them over the years. And then I'll try to answer your questions as best as I can. And some of my part of my presentation also will include the last minute changes that we had to implement because of this coronavirus. So I am born and raised statistician. All of my degrees are in statistics. I did my postdoc at Cornell University also in statistics. And then in 2004, when I joined the Illinois State, I also joined the dark side and left the statistics area and became a mathematical biologist. Since then, all of my publications and my research is on biomathematics or mathematical biology. And ironically, I am one of the 12 research groups, 12 nationwide research groups that are subcontracted by CDC working on modeling, predictive modeling of coronavirus. So I've been teaching statistics since 1994 as a PhD faculty member. Before then, I was the lowest form of life that could hold a piece of chalk, also known as graduate assistant. And then I've been teaching statistics since 1983. So when Danny introduced me, he said, I've been using Hawks Learning Systems since 1999. I think one of us is lying, and chances are it's me. I thought I was using Hawks Learning since 1998, but perhaps he's right. And it turns out that when I first started Hawks Learning Systems I developed a course, proposed a course at Illinois State, a truly online, exclusively online course, and started using Hawks Learning Systems, which then I came to know that no instructor has ever actually taught the software for completely as an online class. It was pretty much designed as a hybrid course software. And so I used to actually share my experiences of using Hawks Learning Systems as an online course over the years. So if you never used Hawks Learning Systems before, over the years, I have realized that it is, in my opinion, most flexible, most intuitive, very user-friendly, both from the instructor's point of view and student point of view. And one of the best designed, both as content, and when everything I say in terms of content is actually related to statistics. And also for learning management systems or course administration aspects. As I said, when I started working with Hawks Learning, it used to be Quant Systems, and this was their the Superman logo font was their logo back then, and students had to buy floppy disks and then CDs, and then they had to purchase either from the bookstore or actually initially from the bookstore before internet became what it is. Access codes to enter the course. Then they were able to, during the CD times, they started being able to actually purchase their access codes directly from the Hawks Learning's website. And when I first started Hawks Learning Systems, the system, the software was designed no more than 10 assignments. I guess the developers were thinking maybe one assignments every couple of weeks or every week or so, and it could only handle 4 or 5 tests. So it has come a long way, and in my opinion, as I said, it has become one of the best products in the market. And I know this sounds like an infomercial. This sounds like, you know, I am pushing for the software, but this is my honest instructor opinion as someone who benefited a lot. During my entire career, I was always into teaching with technology, always exploring technology in every institution that I've been to. So because of that, I experienced pretty much, you name a technology, I probably used it. My stat lab used to be Course Compass, and then it became my stat lab or my math lab, and there used to be Math Zone, which disappeared now. There's Wiley Plus, Launchpad, Saplink, McGraw-Hill's Course Connect, Learn Smart, and then there are these MindTap, Top Hat, Newton, WebAssign, which I'm actually currently using in another class, some other software, and generally publishers, because of the fact that we use this Hawks Learning for a very large enrollment class, all sorts of publishers always try to get us use their product, and I get to review all these different products, and none of them was able to actually get me away from Hawks Learning Systems. Every single one of them had something that Hawks Learning, something that didn't do that Hawks Learning Systems does. So if you never used a Hawks Learning Systems, now it's completely online, and in the course management system, this is when you click on the tools, this is what you see. Manage instructors and sections is where you start a new course, and managing students is pretty intuitive. So that's pretty much where a new class starts from. And once a course is started, the assignments are given in a pretty straightforward calendar. This is the course content, and here are the due dates for the lessons for students to work on. And then there are options whether or not certain sections should be left as bonus. The curriculum of the Hawks learning systems is pretty extensive. Not all courses, course descriptions cover everything. So that allows us actually to leave some of the sections as bonus sections so that the borderline students towards the end of the semester, when they come and say, you know, I am 89.2, is there any way I can get an A? It makes us easy to say, well, go work on a couple of bonus assignments and your average will go over 90. So once the assignments are published, this is what students see. So as soon as these due dates are published, students actually see their due dates and what's coming in here. And then also the online tests are listed in this tab. So students go, as I'll explain in the next couple of slides, students go and work on their assignments or homework assignments and their tests, and after everything, after they start populating the grade book, this is again what instructors see. Remember, we were in the tools tab, now we are in the reports tab, and this reports tab has more information than any instructor can possibly need. There are detailed student grades. You can actually monitor your students' grades, your class performance. You can see which topics that students are having trouble, which topics are getting easy for them. All of those are can easily be obtained from the reports menu. So one of the, I think, distinguishing aspects of the Hawks learning systems is mastery-based learning components. Although other softwares like my MATLAB, my StatLab, and similar other softwares try to get to it, I don't think any one of them does it as sophisticatedly as Hawks learning systems. So for any lesson, students are basically are exposed to 3 modules. The first one is the Learn module. That's the basically the learning, the textbook part of the software. There's an ebook, but ebook has animations. There are video lectures for pretty much most, if not all, of the topics, and there are worked out examples. And so for any assignments, basically students have an access to the content for the assignments through an ebook and this part. And then once the Learn module is basically designed to teach them the material, and the Practice module is have them solve problems and digest the concepts that they learn in the Learn module with handheld exercises. By handheld exercises, what I mean is there are questions available and students are expected to solve them, and if they are having problems, they can get hints, they can try again, they can get the answer, or they can even get step-by-step solutions. And then Practice module also provides them similar questions, but by observing the type of mistakes they do, type of errors that they commit, the questions are the questions that students are thrown at are different based on their learning performances. And then once, so basically the Practice module is supposed to really strengthen what they learned. And then the part that the instructors come into picture is, okay, now you studied the material with the learn module and you practice some problems with the practice part. Now you need to show us that you learned it, and that's where the certification comes from. Certification is different than submitting a homework. Certification, in my opinion, is the only way to go in terms of getting a homework submitted. In my old days, before teaching this with technology, I would assign homework, and students would would submit their homework, sometimes with coffee stains, sometimes with papers ripped from their notebooks. And generally I would grade either like with crosses and check marks, -2, +5, and here's your grade, goodbye. And they would not get really a much more feedback. And if I needed to put some feedback, then like most of us do, I wouldn't grade the whole test, but I would grade perhaps a selected few questions and return the test. And then once the homework goes back in to the students, it goes into their notebooks and they never see it again. So the
Dr. Akman?
Yes.
Can I jump in for 1 second? We have just getting some audience questions. I know we ran through this, but we have a lot of the audience members hoping we can make it towards the course structure and course layout portion of the webinar. So I know I want you to do the webinar at your own pace, but we also want to make sure that we have time to get to those. So
go faster.
Yes, they're anxious to see how you structure your courses over the summer.
All right.
Get to those practical tips.
All right. Then I'll just jump on. If you can read fast, here are the things. Okay, so here we are. On a typical regular semester, on campus regular semester, I assign daily lessons, and then we have either in-person or online office hours. In-person office hours are either, if you're in a smaller liberal art college with no graduate students or community college, then you hold the office hours. Or some of us have graduate students, we have them hold office hours. And also Hawks Learning has its own chat room designed, built in the software. If you go to the tools menu and click on communications, that's where the chat room is, and that's where actually we open the chat room during office hours and students go and discuss their questions with us. So in a typical regular semester, students do daily assignments, then every 3 to 4 weeks or every 3 to 4 chapters, we assign web tests. The tests, however, are proctored in a campus computer lab and campus testing center, and they are on a particular day. Those days are set on their syllabi. Let's say, for instance, March 6th is your first test. They come to the computer lab and they pick a time of the day that they want to take the test, and then we basically proctor the test. And tests can be password protected, and it's our policy that the proctors enter the software, enter the password. This way students won't be able to share the password with someone else who is sitting at home and taking the test instead of them, while the student in the computer lab pretends to be taking the test. So in a summer semester, it is the same course, but taught in shorter period of time. So generally in summer semesters, we assign multiple lessons per day. And the way that our summer courses are work, students who take our summer courses are not on campus. They are actually in all over the place nationwide. We did teach this course from Illinois to students in Utah, to students in Virginia. So therefore, we only have online office hours. Actually, students, even Puerto Rico, for instance, take these courses. So because of the fact that students are in different places, when the test time comes, again, every so many weeks or every so many chapters, we ask students to go to their nearest community college testing center. Most community colleges, if not all community colleges, have testing centers. In some cities, public libraries offer testing, and even some high schools provide testing centers. So basically, once students are ready to take the test, they directly contact the community college testing center and make an appointment. And then they let us know when that appointment is. I created a form for students to basically enter their information. And the form is designed for each midterm test. And we generally require at least a couple of days, 2 to 3 days before they have to take the test, so that we have enough time to send the testing information, testing password instructions to the testing center. So for instance, here the first question is, you need to make an appointment. And if the student clicks no, it says, okay, don't fill out this form. You have to go make an appointment 3 days in advance. And some community colleges don't allow students to make an appointment unless they know what the testing is about. And then if the students pick that option, then they are instructed to let us know what information is needed. But most students should actually first go and make an appointment and tell us that they are making that appointment. Let's say that's for so I am going to pick a date from the past so that there is enough time. So there's a small calculator in here, so it basically counts the number of days between the test and the day that they are filling out this form. So if this number is less than 3, they cannot take the test, because we require them to make the appointment at least 3 days. So this is where they tell us what college that they are going to take the test, name of the testing center, contact information, and the email of the testing center's contact. And then once they submit this form, it gets saved into an database, and from that database we email the testing center the password and the instructions of the test. And then students have to pay a fee, so that needs to be mentioned in the syllabus, that it's their responsibility to pay a testing fee, or they travel to your campus and take it on your campus, I guess, for free. And again, one of the instructions we send to testing center coordinators is for them to enter the password so that students won't see it. So this is how my course was, and that's how we actually initially designed the course. But then over the years, it started not making that much sense the way we designed it. One of them is students work many courses. They have several jobs. So then the test dates that we set, sometimes they are not available, or they have to take day off. So that was actually one of the issues that we started having. And then some of the days that some testing centers, community college testing centers, are closed. So for instance, in Illinois, most community college testing centers are closed on Fridays. And that started also becoming a problem in terms of covering the material. And then also students take a lot of different summer courses. So we decided to change the structure a little bit. The beginning still stays the same. We assign multiple daily lessons and online office hours, but instead of setting a test date, we say you can take the test as soon as you finish, let's say, the first 4 chapters. The first midterm will cover the first 4 chapters. If you go ahead of the time, if you actually certify all 4 chapters content within a day, you can take the test within a day. And however, there is still a deadline, and our syllabus basically says you can take the test as soon as you complete the content or by a particular date, and that in order to make sure that actually students are on track, and by the time the course ends, they are still not lag behind. So another thing that we learned as beneficial is originally the test, every certification, every lesson had a deadline, and if the students submitted the certification by that deadline, they got full points. If not, they got 0. So that's in my mind was a way to force them to submit the assignments on time, but for sometimes unavoidable reasons, students cannot submit an assignment on time, and they get 0. And with our experience, after if this happens a few times and they get 3, 4, 5 zeros on assignments, they either give up or drop the course. So we thought that actually have them learning the material, even if it is little later, is still better. So we decided to allow late certification with little bit penalty. So with gradual penalty. So if they certify a lesson a day later than it is due, we only ding them like 5%, and then by gradually increasing the penalty, we still allow them to certify the lessons by the time the test date came. The requirement is that in order to take a test, all these sections that the test covers have to be certified. And with this late certification penalty, basically what we are saying is, we don't care when you certify it as long as you certify it before the test date. So this basically requires the instructor to be a bit better organized. On the first day, all the lessons have to be scheduled, and then all the tests have to be published so that students who went ahead of the schedule can have access to the tests whenever they are ready. And some in the way that our summer courses are designed, final exam doesn't make sense. But according to if your college has a different summer schedule, then a final exam could be given as well. Okay. So this is actually what we were using up until this semester, and then there comes COVID-19. And the change that we made is still the initial part still stays the same, and we still have the online office hours. But since the community colleges are closed and our university is closed, there are no in-person proctored tests anymore. So we are going to use online test proctoring options. So ProctorU is one of them, Proctorio and HonorLock, and I think Danny mentioned, he may tell us later, another one that we were talking about yesterday. So I am actually currently using in my class that I am teaching this semester, in the spring semester, we are teaching, we were using ProctorU, and then I'll talk about that in a second. So over the years, on the summer courses, based on the data that we have since, so we are teaching this since 2007. So based on our data from 2007, about 10% of the students actually complete the course several weeks ahead of schedule. So that you can take the test as long as you certify a certain content approach makes perfect sense. It benefits these students. And 75% of or so students complete the course. When I say complete the course, they basically go to all the way to the end of the semester, and then they may either pass or not. And about 15% of the students basically drop out because studying all by themselves, certifying themselves without an instructor forcing them day by day is too much for them. And since 2007, 78% of the students who took this class received C or better. Here are a few challenges that I think if you ever teach this class, you will probably see or hear. One of them is once they see in the summer course catalog, oh, it's a summer class, it's an online, and it's not no in-person teaching, it's an easy A, let me jump on this class. I actually specifically tell them in my syllabus and in the communications with the students before the semester that this class is actually harder than your typical summer class because the entire burden is on you. You have to certify, you have to study the material, certify yourself, you have to practice tests yourself. So this is not an easy course that you think you can take while you're doing many other things. This is also a pretty common request. We get, there isn't one single semester I didn't get requests like these. My family have this family reunion. It was scheduled 6 months ago, and we are going to middle of nowhere. Is it okay if I submit all of my assignments like a month after the class starts? So that's a big no-no. That's actually setting up them for failure. And this is also very common. If I had $1 every time I heard this, I wouldn't be teaching here today. Can I take the test, but I didn't certify all of my lessons? Or can you please let me take the test and then I'll go home and certify the lessons? The answer is again no. The certification is the proof that you actually learned the material. If you haven't learned the material, there's no point for us to test you. Another big excuse is, oh, I didn't make an appointment, but today is June 6th. I have to take the test today. Can I go take the test today? No, you cannot, because we still need some time to send the password and testing information to the testing center staff. My computer crashed, I lost my Wi-Fi, we had no power. Can I submit my exam, my certification tomorrow, but without a penalty because I need a certain grade in this class? No, you cannot. If you don't have your certification ready, submit it tomorrow. You'll get some penalty, but you'll still get some grades. Whatever other excuses that you get, the answer is no, you cannot. sometimes they arrive at the testing center and then call you, or the testing center staff calls you and says, this student forgot the password, they can't log in, can they take the test now? That's very easy, you just reset their password. So the faculty side challenges is, there isn't really any challenges from the faculty point. This is actually one of my favorite classes to teach because it's really a low maintenance class. It is more of a management than instruction. It's more of a management in terms of making sure the assignments are scheduled correctly, the tests are posted correctly, and then crisis management, because everybody always something goes wrong. But other than that, I think the course goes pretty good. And then this is I'm almost to the end of my presentation. So this is when I said we are using ProctorU. I actually stopped using ProctorU after giving one test to the students, and because of this. So I'll leave this for a couple of maybe 30 seconds or so for you to read the news. This was published in Washington Post about 3 weeks ago. And when I read this, I just had actually my test administered with ProctorU a week before I read this. And I felt really uncomfortable that I was part of the system that made students go through something like this, where the test ProctorU basically invades a student's privacy in ways that I myself am not comfortable with. So I stopped using ProctorU because of it, because I thought this is something that as a student I wouldn't like to go through myself. And also it made me see the light that actually there is an ethical challenge in this, that simply because a student is taking his or her test at home, my first assumption is they are going to cheat. They are guilty, and in order to keep them from cheating, or they have to go through this invasion of privacy just to prove that they are innocent. So this is not really much different than TSA at the airports assuming that all of our shoes are explosives, or all of our shampoos are explosives. And so in order to still give my students the impression of academic integrity, I stopped using ProctorU, and I thought of giving a test while I watch them myself on Zoom by forcing students turn their cameras on. And poor students, they all turned their cameras on and took the test, but it felt weird, and I quit that as well. So now I actually give my test to students and still on a particular time with their cameras off. It turns out that I decided to actually reach out to their honesty by telling them that I trust them and they should therefore be honest. The non-scientific evidence that seems to be working is, after I stopped proctoring their online tests, their grades did not improve much more than the tests that they took while they were being proctored. So that's my non-scientific evidence that perhaps they were not cheating. So I thank you for your time, and I'm ready for your questions.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Akman. We have gotten a number of questions on the proctoring, and I think you just worked to address those and talked about the different things you have done in terms of using the proctoring services, using Zoom, and now not proctoring those online tests. Do you have any other potential ideas for how or have you heard other things that faculty are doing that they could potentially work to address some of the proctoring issues? Could you just talk a little bit more about that?
So currently the common theme in my department that people are using is, as I said, ProctorU was the recommended online proctoring service, and few other people are using still Zoom, having students take the test with Zoom on. And other than that, I don't know any other proctoring method, any other online proctoring method that my colleagues are using. When I shared my experiences with my colleagues about, you know what, I'm going to take, I'm going to trust my students and give them a good speech and have them take the test honestly, is pretty much everybody seems to agree. So that's, I think there's only 2 faculty members left using ProctorU right now. Everybody else are letting students take it without test. And anecdotal evidence is there is not a rampant cheating going on at all.
What about other ways that you're working to support students right now through the COVID-19 pandemic?
Yes, so now so first of all, I teach synchronously on by using Zoom, and then I have Zoom office hours, but now they are extended office hours. And in addition to my lectures, and in addition to extended office hours, I also post lectures. I also post even YouTube clips and worked out examples. And unlike the regular semester, I also post lecture notes and or my solutions on the course website, basically giving students as much interaction as I could to replace the in-class professor-student interaction.
And can you talk a little bit more about the testing centers? I know that those are not a possibility right now, but for those who continue to teach online, and testing centers at some point may open back up, we had some question on the fees and some of what is experienced there.
Yes, eventually, if our models are correct, this thing they will eventually come back to teaching normal again. So this using testing centers without an exaggeration was the biggest and most beneficial change in my course. Before the testing centers, we used to force students to actually come to campus during the summer, like every 4 weeks, and take the test that we used to proctor. So the way testing centers work is, as I said, pretty much every community college has a testing center, and it's widely available on their websites. If you have a local community college, just to go to their websites and search for testing center, or sometimes they are called academic access centers. So these testing centers are designed to proctor tests to everybody, not to their students, but to everybody in the community. So the way it works is, let's say you're a student in Chicago and you're taking a class from Illinois State University in Normal. You go to your nearest test, you basically online make an appointment with the testing center, and just pick up a date and time, and then let us know that date and time. And testing centers have computers. They also administer paper pencil tests. They collect tests and mail them to you. If you allow students to use formula sheets, they actually take those formula sheets, either scan them, send them to you, or mail them to you. And and they provide whatever computer software you want. When Hawk's learning systems used to be downloadable before they became totally web-based, testing centers would actually take the time and download the software and make it ready for their students. So then the students show up on a particular day, and the testing fee generally varies between $15 to $25. I think the highest is $25 so far, I heard, per test. And testing centers I have never been more satisfied with an academic service that an institution ever provided. Testing center people, and this is not for a particular community college. Every testing center, every community college I work with, and sometimes, as I said, public libraries have testing centers, testing services for their residents. Is one of the best aspects of this summer class. I very highly recommend it.
And in terms of the testing centers, we had a question on how you accommodate students with disability who require extra time. Is that something that the testing centers do?
Yes. So good question. Hawk's, when I said in the beginning, Hawk's learning system is one of the most flexible softwares. Hawk's different different periods for testing for different students. You can actually assign 20 different testing times to 20 different students. And then the testing centers are, there isn't, to my knowledge, there isn't even a single testing center that does not accommodate students with disabilities. So actually students with disabilities are better off taking a test in a community college testing center than, to be honest, by my university.
And we've had a couple instructors bring up points on that they have thought about changing, instead of doing a final exam or final test with some of these conditions, doing things such as assigning projects, or wondering if you even need a final test at all right now. Can you speak to that? Yes,
I am in complete agreement to that, especially in general, in my career ever. There are very few cases where students actually improve their grades on a final exam. So the final exam, we stopped giving final exams on this course even before Corona, even before we went online, because with the certification and with the practice tests and all that, we test students on each subject so deeply that there's no point of giving another test by throwing generic questions from 8 weeks ago just to see if they remember any of those. So I am in complete agreement that instead of a final exam, a culminating project where they work on a real life problem or a problem that they choose, using the contents or the knowledge that they learned in the class. So in another class, not in this particular one, but in another class, actually, we do exactly that. Instead of a final exam, we give them a term project, and one of the requirements of the term project is there are 4 or 5 key components. They have to be used. For instance, descriptive data analysis have to be used, testing have to be used, things like that. So if you bring a term project where you counted number of blue M&Ms and number of red M&Ms, that won't fly. But if you use the statistical inference concepts, that's what we do. And it turns out that's actually a better way of instituting the knowledge that they learned than a final exam. I am in complete agreement to that.
And can you speak to students who may be having trouble accessing the internet right now, which is obviously critical for online classes, and how you all are navigating that?
So the Hawks learning systems is the way we our online class required always internet access. So before COVID-19, the lack of internet access was easy to handle because we actually asked students to, and I had a couple of students like that. There was one student in Michigan who had to go to a nearest high school to use their computer lab because they didn't have Wi-Fi at home. And or like go to public libraries or community college computer labs. But currently now that we are all completely online, what I do is email the students, again assuming that they could get the emails. And if they don't have reliable Wi-Fi or reliable internet access at home, I like them to submit their even handwritten and scanned homework to me by somehow with email, and I take that as an online submitted course. This, by the way, before we go to the next question, the one I am currently using is a upper level statistics course. So I use WebAssign. So there are lots of symbolic calculations. There are lots of integrations and things like that. So it works well in that case.
And can you speak a little bit more to the compressed online format for the summer and how to adjust your class to make that fit?
Yes, so the summer class, the course that I talked about is our introductory stat course for non-math majors. It's a gen ed requirement, and the course content or course description is your typical generic introductory stat course: descriptive statistics, estimation, interval estimation, hypothesis testing, and maybe a little bit baby algebra. Baby regression. So there are about 40 or so topics, lessons, and in a typical semester we have 42 lecture hours. So in a typical semester, they get about one at most two lessons assigned per day. In a summer class, the lessons are about 3 to 4 per day because the length of the summer session is 8 weeks. The way we schedule it is the lessons are scheduled only to weekdays. So and minus the Memorial Day, July 4th, and things like that. And since it's and on weekdays they have 2-3 assignments, but they can still work on assignments over the weekends and go ahead of the day. So multiple lessons are assigned. So in an 8-week class, easier assignments in the beginning: descriptive statistics, finding mean, median, things like that. We basically load the earlier days of the semester with many assignments so that towards the end, hypothesis testing, estimation, we can get away with assigning 1 lesson per day because those assignments are a bit more complicated. They take a bit more time.
Thank you. And back to some of the online testing, I've seen a couple more questions coming in about that. We sort of had 2 questions that I wanted to throw at you. One is, do you have the students sign any sort of pledge at some point? And then do you deal with, now that you're not using a testing centers or a proctoring service, do you have any concerns about accreditation issues or anything like that?
Yes and no. I used to have a pledge or honor code as the first page of my tests, and that they had to sign it and submit that before I released the test. And actually, among everybody, my son, who is a senior in University of Illinois, convinced me not to do it. And he said, "Look, I'll sign anything just to get the test and take the test." So I actually have very official sounding honor codes that they had to sign, and then I stopped using it as well. The only thing I think I've done, and I believe it worked, is I gave my students through an email. I sent them an email, and I gave one of those brave heart, today is the day of our independence kind, a very touchy communication. And I said something along the lines of, "We are all in this together, so I'll support you. In return, I need your honesty." And among all these policies, among all these trying to micromanage their honesty, it seems to, this seems to be working better. That's my experience. And I am, I guess, seasoned. I am not too far from my retirement. So for our new young faculty members, the only advice I could give, I think, is trust the students. They are not as bad as we always try to portray them every time we get together and start student bashing chats.
What about ways to keep students on track throughout the week and throughout the semester? Can you talk a little bit more about some of the things
Yes,
there?
very good question. Very, very good question. And this is Hawk's learning system is actually one of the best tools to do it. So with that reports, you can actually look at how students are doing. Because I was yapping too much and Danny made me go faster, I skipped actually in one of my slides that I actually monitor students' performance on with the reports component of the software. So in the reports, you can see the students' study habits. They don't know this, but when a student completes an assignment, when completes a certification, the software generates a code. That code is the what that certifies them. However, that code contains an information. You can actually see how much time they spent on studying the material, how much time they studied, they did practice, and how they certified. So for instance, if I see a student who spent 0 minutes on the learn module, maybe 1 minute on the practice module, and then they spent 98 minutes and they took 7 attempts to certify the lesson. You can actually see this for each student. So to those students, I email and I say, hey, look, you're not really trying to learn the material here. You're just trying to beat the system by taking the test over and over again and hoping that you'll get lucky in one of them. So I am canceling your certification. I want you to go and study the material and practice the problems and certify again. So that's, and of course, the one follow-up question might be, how do you know? Maybe they'll just turn the learn on and go have a cup of coffee and come back. I don't know, but again, we cannot police students' every single behavior. We cannot micromanage them in their private lives. And then with the reports menu on Hawk's Learning, you can also see which sections are becoming more difficult for them, where they are behind, how many lessons are submitted on time, how many are spent a lot of time on, how many was easy. So to those students, I communicate directly, or during the semesters, my graduate assistants communicate directly. And we say, okay, hey, Danny, we noticed that you're 3 sections behind. Are you okay? Is there anything we can do? Why don't you come to the office hour and work with us? So that is what we have been doing for almost a decade now, and it seems to be working. There are on many like teaching-oriented conferences like NTCCM or teaching or Math Fest and things like that. There are talks on deadline implementations. Which one is better? Do you want to leave no deadline and have students do all of their certifications the day before the semester ends, or do you want them to do it a day by day? The latter is more successful. So that's why one of the reasons that we give midterm tests on certain times and force students to certify the lessons that midterm covers by that day is actually an attempt to get them online, because if you don't, the students don't have enough motivation to actually get it on time. They leave it up to the last minute. One advice I can give is never let the students decide when should the deadline be, because we are all, you know, we are all, even as a faculty, I don't remember even submitting a grant proposal the night before the deadline. So therefore, giving these deadlines and monitoring students to see to it that they are on schedule, I think is one of the best advices I have received and I can give.
We're getting to the end of our time. I do want to make sure we get in a couple more questions before we all have to go. We had some questions about the office hours and how students, just asking if students utilize those, how they utilize them. Can you speak to the office hours?
Sure. So the online office hours are, so there are 2 answers to this. One is with the Hawks Learning Systems chat room, and whenever the declared office hours are, we basically open the chat room and wait there in case a student comes and asks a question. And then currently we are that was in a regular semester. They could come use us or meet us with the in the chat room. Now we replace the in-person office hours with Zoom. So I have Zoom office hours, and they are actually on my website. They can anytime they can just click on it and come to the website, come to the office hour during those office hours.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm scrolling through here to see if we can get to 1 or 2 final questions before we have to go. We had a question on how many students are participate in your classes.
So this introductory stat course generally has over 100 students. That's the enrollment changes. I think the lowest number of students we had was 75, and the highest was 180. That's why there are these online forms for them to submit their testing appointments and things like that. Otherwise, if they email, it becomes a crazy hell. So with the online submission, we get a nice database, and then we can actually do a mail merge and send the community colleges the informations all at once.
Okay, well, we are out of time. Dr. Akman, I want to thank you very much for your presentation today. Audience would really like to thank you for joining us, for participating in this Q&A, and hopping in there. If you have questions, you can email us at marketing@hawkslearning.com, and we will be emailing out a recording of this webinar to everyone who registered. So thank you again.
And yeah, in case you need to contact me separately, here's my contact information, and also I think Hawks Learning Systems reps. I am almost a family now. I've been using their software for 2,000 years, so they can also contact me or help you contact me. Thank you very much.
Okay, take care, everybody.